Welcome back to another episode of Be Our Guest here on Musical Theater Radio. I am your host, as always, Jean-Paul Jovanoff. As you may or may not know, I am Canadian, and I love supporting our Canadian musical theater family. And today's guest is a performer, a founder of the blog Both Sides of the Curtain, co-host of the podcast Breaking the Curtain, and fellow Canadian. That's the most important part. Let's welcome to the show, Jocelyn Bertram. Jocelyn, hello.
Hi, thank you. That was such an awesome intro.
Nothing but the facts from here. And the facts are always the best. So
thank you. I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
No problem. No problem. So before we delve into the deep, dark secrets of Jocelyn, or
okay,
talk about, I always want to get to know for myself and for our guests to get to know our guests a little bit better. So in 30 seconds, who is Jocelyn? So the 30-second bio of Jocelyn Bertram.
Well, there isn't much to say. I mean, I'm in my early 20s. I'm living here in Southern Ontario, and I'm currently working a side job in a clinic, which I love. And then I'm also love to perform, and I love to see theater and write about theater and talk about theater. I never really shut up about theater. So that's really it. And, since the pandemic, it's been such a cool time to do things like this over Zoom and over the internet, and to see how things are growing and evolving.
Very nice. Very nice. And you actually might be the only theater person who's ever had to get a side job, because everybody else, theater pays for everything. Right? Yeah.
I am so lucky to have a job that, is supportive, it's close to home, and I'm very, very lucky.
That's very cool. Very cool. So have you always been into musical theater or theater in general all your life, or is that something you grew into?
No, it's always been like this. Obviously I grew up watching Disney movies. So the world of where people would just start singing, that was very natural to me. I thought more movies could do that. And growing up, I would watch things like with my grandma. Like I remember watching Annie and like The King and I and The Sound of Music. So like kind of old movie musicals, and then of course newer ones. But I think it was around I was in grade 8, and I found a bootleg of Wicked online, because obviously I was not going to New York in the 8th grade to see it on Broadway. And I was in love with it. I was obsessed. And I think, just jumping back a couple of years, I was in grade 4 when my dad took me to see Phantom at Mirvish in 2007. It had a sit down here, and I was like floored. And like, I haven't shut up about musical theater since, much to his regret. But yeah, it was in 8th grade. I was watching this bootleg of Wicked, and I was obsessed with it. And I was like, wait a minute, people do this like for real? Like people do this for a living. And I was like, I gotta figure out how to do that. And that's really essentially what my love for musical theater grew to. And I was so lucky, I started dancing competitively in my hometown. I started taking voice lessons. I got involved with South Simcoe Theater, the community theater nearby. And, through high school, I just kind of worked on that. I went to St. Clair College for musical theater, and now I'm out in the real world, still finding different ways to explore it and enjoy it.
Very cool. I'm always curious, are you the black sheep of the family, or is it a very artistic, loving type family?
They're very outdoorsy, actually, my family, and I'm not very much. I think like the artsy parts of my family are more like, my grandma and back. Yep. But like my brother he has an amazing rock band. Actually, I have to be a good big sister. They're dropping their first release on Spotify next Tuesday. They're called Rider.
Nice.
And so you can look them up. So he's very musically talented. It's incredible, actually, because my brain does not work the way that his does. Mm-hmm. But yeah, other than that, no, we're not like super artsy, super theatrical people. I'm always kind of like, Mom, do you want to go see a musical with me? And she'll drag her heels, but she'll agree eventually.
That's a good mom.
Yeah.
That.
They are the best. My dad once sat through Les Mis with me, and I don't know if he's recovered, but he did it.
Would he rather sit through a Leafs game or a Jays or a Raptors or something like that?
Probably, yeah.
Okay. Nice.
It's just, he was just that's a bit long. It's good, but it's long. And I was like, fair enough.
Did you now before you went to St. Clair College, was there ever an inkling of wanting to do something else? Sometimes there's another career path that you kind of thought of. You probably aren't going to, but you went, you know what, maybe.
Well, that's actually really funny because I was convinced I was going to go to school for forensic science for the longest time. I love that. I love science. I love learning about like culture and how that affects the scientific stuff. I was like, I'm going to be a forensic scientist, or I'm going to go into anthropology or archaeology, something like that. And that was my life plan. And then I learned about doing theater and I was like, maybe. But then I was like, what if I went to and I got a BA in theater and then I went to law school. And so then law was like my passion. I actually got into like a criminology entry level, that was my path. And then I just auditioned for theater schools and got in, and I was like, the books can wait. My knees can't.
You can always go back to be a forensic science.
Yeah, essentially that's kind of what it came down to. I was like, if because at this point I'd been dancing competitively for a while, and that takes a strain on your body. It doesn't matter who you are. So I was kind of like, I should go and do this while I physically can do this and enjoy it. And I'll always be able to go to school and learn things from a book. For sure. But I might,
Yeah, your body breaks down.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's just even just wear and tear of daily life, right? So
yeah, for sure. So you went to St. Clair College, which I believe is in Windsor, yes?
Yeah, out in Windsor.
So you moved from a smaller town to the big city of Windsor, which I believe is the New York of Southwestern Ontario. So how is that, and how is going to that school and program?
It was a huge difference, but the best thing about Windsor is how warm it is, because it's Point Pelee, which is very close to where I went to school, is the southernmost tip of Ontario. So it is very warm.
Just let people know, it's right across the bridge from Detroit.
Yeah, it's right across the bridge from Detroit, which, it's such a nice city in the sense that, you have your downtown core, but you literally go maybe 10 minutes north and it's small town. So that was awesome. And I know the university is by more of the city part, but luckily the college was more kind of in the little suburban area. So it was great. And, there were lots of opportunities to rent houses and commute to school. And then when we were doing our main stage performances, we were downtown at the Chrysler Theater, which is literally right on the waterfront. You can see Detroit when you stand in front of the theater. So it's such a lovely venue, and it was awesome to kind of experience both. But yeah, it was a very big change, and especially going away from home for the first time and being 5 hours away. It's kind of okay.
Because the funny thing is, I grew up many years apart, but in a small town, not too far from you, not too close, but yeah. I'm a country boy, a small town guy too as well. And you probably went to a school where there wasn't a lot of theater people, and all of a sudden now you're thrown in with the best of the best, right?
Oh, 100%.
And what was that like when you all of a sudden you're surrounded by everybody who's just as good or maybe a little better and that sort of thing?
Well, when you live in a small town, you don't always have the same opportunities necessarily for large scale musicals or to go to a performing arts high school. I didn't even know that was a thing until I got to college, and they were like, oh yeah, I went to performing arts high school for 4 years. And I was like, where is this magical place? But I was very lucky to kind of have teachers that were great. And my high school has, a very dedicated theater department. But yeah, we got in, and for our orientation day, part of that was we all got up in front of each other and the faculty and sang one of our audition songs. And I was already nervous because singing was kind of I was like, yeah, I can act. Yeah, I can dance. But I was like, you want singing? I can do. But, it was one of those things that I really had to work at. Yeah. I'm still working on it. And everybody just got up and sang. And I was like, I don't want to go now. We had so much talent in my class, and they are just such a wonderful group of people and talent. And yeah, they were very intimidating that very first day. But the great part about being surrounded by people who you perceive as better than you is that you learn from them. Mm-hmm. And everybody brought something to the table that, you know, you learned from your peers just as much as you learn from your teachers.
Oh, for sure. Because they're feeling the exact same way about their dance or their acting, right? And you all realize, you know what, we all have our strengths and weaknesses, and yeah, we'll help each other grow. And yeah, it becomes a family, right?
Yeah. And, you know, people talk a lot about theater being competitive, and I hate that. Yeah. I hate it. I firmly believe there's a piece of the pie for everyone. And I firmly believe that working with other people and being collaborative instead of competitive, it makes you a better artist and, you know, a better person, in the sense that, like, if you take somebody as like, it's not like, oh my gosh, they're better at me than me at this. It's like, no, I love how this person listens in scenes. I love how this person reacts. I really love the technical aspects of this person. Or, hey, that was really cool. I wonder how they did that. Once you apply that lens and you're in a place where you can converse with people, like, it's awesome. And just everything's a learning opportunity is kind of where I'm at. And that's really what I loved kind of growing up, and even now, about doing shows that are community theater as opposed to kind of at the professional level, is you have this at the professional level, but I think at a community theater level, it's everybody just kind of coming in and going, like, what can I learn from each person?
Yeah, the passion at a community theater is what drives it. Not everybody's gonna have, it's a community theater, so not everybody's gonna be the highest quality, but I would sometimes, as a director, rather work with somebody with passion who wants to do it, rather than somebody with talent and just a pain in the butt.
You know, everybody wants to be there, everybody wants to work hard, and everybody wants to make the show the best that they can be. And I think from that, yeah, you have the opportunity to learn from each other and grow that way, and the show's better for it. And I think, you know, definitely at St. Clair, I can think of like 3 examples off the top of my mind of things that I learned just from watching my classmates.
Mm-hmm. Nice. So it's a 3-year program, yes?
Yeah.
Cool. So after 3 years, Jocelyn's graduated. Then what? What did you do?
Jocelyn went out into the real world. She got a side job and she went to do some auditions, which, you know, that's kind of the best way to learn. You know, school, they're going to prepare you. They'll do mock audition classes or all that sort of stuff. But whenever you're being primed for the industry, whether it's by an independent teacher or whether it's by a professor, anything like that, you know, you're being given their lens, which is sometimes great and it's sometimes not great. And I think the best thing to do is to just go to a couple auditions, just go in, do your thing, and like get a feel for it. But I think coming out of school, as much as you learn a lot in school, I found that I had a lot of stuff I had to unlearn. And so kind of on my journey, kind of from there to now, I had to unlearn a lot of things that I picked up in school. And as I came out of that, and I started working with a phenomenal voice teacher, Gabby Epstein. She does a lot of theater stuff. You probably know her. She's an amazing vocal coach and mentor to me. And I worked with her and I started auditioning again. And I was like, yeah, this is it. I really felt like I was, you know, starting to hit my stride. And of course, then the pandemic happened. And during the pandemic, I took a lot of online classes, which I think everybody did. And I started working with Zena Gustart, who is a choreographer out of the UK. And I had met her a couple times before because I'm a big fan of the show Bad Out of Hell. And I actually, Zena choreographed the show. So I actually kind of met her through there and we stayed in touch. And she started a little thing called the Showbiz Clinic during the pandemic. And it was kind of like all the other kind of businessy side of acting and performance that, sometimes you kind of miss in school between all the dance classes and acting classes and technique and this and that. I felt that was something really lacking from my training. So between working with her and working with Gabby, like I really felt myself kind of, I hate this term, but I felt myself like level up. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, it all kind of started to click, which of course what was fantastic. But yeah, when you first come out of theater school, it's quite kind of shocking because, I don't think anybody can truly prepare you for what it's like because everybody's different, right? Everybody's going to have a different reaction to it.
Yep. I had the same thing when I came out. It's they prepare you as much as they can, but they prepare you in the way they think is correct. And then that's not always right and not always wrong. You just got to figure it out for yourself.
Yeah, you gotta, this is what I would tell anybody going into like a theater program, or coming out of it, is that you don't have to take everything that they give you. You're going to take what serves you, leave what doesn't, and then keep learning and growing once you're out of there. Take the next opportunity for that. It's you don't have to take everything. You can leave what you don't need at the door.
Yep. So what made you start your blog, Both Sides of the Curtain? What was the impetus to create that?
Yeah, well, it's funny because that actually comes with, coming out of school. And so I came out of school and I did a directing job right off the bat. And then I just auditioned and not much was happening, which fair enough. I was right out of school. You're still learning, you're still growing. And I was kind of like, okay, I love theater. I like talking about theater. I'm not really doing any theater at the moment because no one will hire me. But I was like, okay, so how can I take that and incorporate it into my life so I have like an outlet if it isn't going to be like performing or constantly taking class or all that. And I've always loved to write, creative writing mainly, but like writing has always been something I've liked. It's always been something I've been good at. And I was like, I think the inspiration was because I started it in early 2019 and I had seen a show I was a fan of, and I've seen some awful reviews, not professional reviews. I mean, because for the most part with a bad professional review, it's at least kind of polite, you know what I mean? But I kept seeing stuff online about people just saying absolute garbage about a show they didn't like or a cast they didn't like or this or that, and putting it out in the world where like the people you're talking about can see it. And I was like, that's wrong. Yeah. That's not nice. Like, if you're going to have an opinion that something isn't great, at least like be kind and be educated about it. Like, these people were kind of being jerks for the sake of being jerks. And I was like, okay. So my goal was to kind of create a space on my site where I could put every positive thought I've ever had about theater out there. I was like, I'm not a reviewer. I've done a lot of theater. I felt like I was in a place where I was like, okay, yeah, I can review a show objectively. But I was also like, I want to be the website that always has a positive thing to say. And so that's kind of what I did. And then it evolved into things like interviews with different people, to just little like fluffy posts like about playlists or things like that. And then, some promotional stuff here and there. And it just kind of slowly and gradually evolved. And it's been quite the fun little journey. I love it. And one downside to being so busy is that I don't have as much time to sit down and write. But it's just so nice to kind of, go, hey, there's something missing from my life. Let's sit down and let's do something fun. And it's really great. And especially when the pandemic started, it was a good way to kind of, keep the juices flowing. When everybody was laid off, I was like, okay, what can I create? It's creating just in a different way.
Yeah, so much got written once the pandemic hit, because
Yeah.
what are you gonna do? You can't
No,
perform.
nothing
So
else to do, right? Yeah.
exactly, exactly. And you're so right about reviews. I was talking. I had an interview earlier today with Jennifer Tepper, one of the producers of
Mm.
Be More Chill.
Oh, she's awesome.
Yeah, she was fantastic. But she was saying that Be More Chill was running in New Jersey and got a bad review from New York Times, and
Mm.
that sunk it. But they took that and they worked something else. They worked it in the positive, and it, yeah, it just, one person's opinion should not be the be all and end all. And if it's not constructive, if it's, you know what, if you have negative and it's constructive, I'm okay with that, because you're trying to help, and not everything's perfect, but not
Yeah.
everything's terrible either.
And not everything is meant for you.
Yep,
I
exactly.
think I'm going to use an example of this. I went and I saw Blindness at Mirvish,
Mhm.
and it was this beautiful lighting and sound installation that was kind of like an audio play for people who haven't seen it. But I went and I saw it. It was really great. It was incredibly well done. But personally, as a human, it was way too dark for me. It was way too heavy.
Mhm.
I kind of wanted to leave, but like I sat through it because of how well done it was.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like I can objectively say that that was a phenomenal piece of theater, but I can also say I couldn't stomach it again because of how dark it is. It
Yep.
was a very dark show. So I think there's a difference between going, oh, this person's portrayal wasn't for me, or this story wasn't for me, to be going, oh my God, they suck. Like there's a huge difference. It's a huge difference. And yeah, you can love something or not like something, but maybe you have to think about like, do I not like it because it's bad, or do I just not like it because it's not for me?
Yeah, and a lot of people can't distinguish the two.
Yeah. And the great thing about Be More Chill is, as much as that's what happened, look at the huge global fan base it has. So like, it's kind of, when you think about audience perspective, maybe that show wasn't meant for the New York Times critic. It was meant for the people who love it and enjoy it and have blown it up to kind of a global success. Like it ran on the West End and did great. It had the Broadway transfer. Like,
I'm always curious, in an alternate timeline, if the New York Times had liked it, would it have reached the same heights? Right? Is that negative make you stronger and make you work twice as hard? Because sometimes positive reinforcement is not necessarily beneficial. It's nice for the ego, but it doesn't push you. So maybe I'll have to try and find that alternate universe. See what I can do. So how long have you been writing the blog?
Since I started it in February 2019, so 3 and a bit years.
Okay. And then you started a podcast as well, the Breaking the Curtain podcast, because you don't have enough stuff to do already, right? So tell us about that too.
So my best friend, Chrissy, and I, we are constantly talking about musical theater. We met through musical theater. We both love it. We both perform. We both have kind of worked in different areas of the arts. And we love talking about theater. And she also runs a theater blog called Breaking the Curtain. No, Break a Leg.
Okay.
Blah. Breaking the Curtain is the podcast. So she runs a great blog called Break a Leg. And one day during the pandemic, early pandemic, we were talking to each other. And I was like, wow, our conversations are so funny. And I said it as a joke, but I was like, wait a minute. I was like, we should start a podcast. And we kind of joked about it for a while. And we were like, haha, yeah, we should start a podcast, because we're the kind of people, like, we'll send voice notes to each other on our phones, because sometimes there's just too much to say to type. I feel like, my brain moves faster than my fingers sometimes. So I was like, yeah, we'll start a podcast. And we were like, ha 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 ha. And then it kind of was like, oh, wait, like, what if we did start a podcast?
Yeah.
And we did.
Nice.
We did. We our very first episode, we were like, it would kind of be nice to have, like, we tried to record like multiple like getting to know us episodes. We could never like get through them because we were like, this is so ridiculous. So we sent an email, we reached out to our buddy, Giovanni Spano. He is a wonderful performer and musician. He's currently on the West End in Cinderella. And we met him through Bat Out of Hell, the musical, and we knew him before we knew each other. And again, it was a situation of, I went to the stage door, I met this guy, and we just stayed in touch, and he became such like a cheerleader for me. I was a fan of his, and we've stayed in contact since 2017. And all this time as we were talking, he was like, you should meet this girl, Chrissy. He was like, you two would get along. You guys would be great friends. And I was like, okay, Gio, but like, it would be weird for me to message this random girl on the internet and say, hey, Gio thinks we should be friends. But he was having the same conversations with her about me. And it was funny how it kind of came about. I had an audition for Dear Evan Hansen actually at Mirvish.
Yeah.
And so I had that, and I'd been talking to Gio about it. And Chrissy had gone to visit London to like do some tour stuff and see the show and stuff. So Gio was talking to Chrissy about my audition while I was in the audition. And I got a message after they had spoken or whatever from Chrissy. I kind of knew who she was from social media, but she was like, hey, I just wanted to say, like, I hope your audition went really well. Like, break a leg. Like, that's so cool, blah, blah, blah. She was like, Gio told me all about it. And I was like, I told him not to tell anybody in case it goes horribly. And anyway, we've been friends ever since. So we called up Gio, and we were like, hey, we're going to start a theater podcast. Will you be our first guest? And he was like, absolutely. So yeah, we sat down summer 2020. We sat down and we interviewed him, and that little catch up / interview chat was the first episode of Breaking the Curtain. And we've gone on from there. So really it really did genuinely start as a joke. And we were like, okay, like we'll do like maybe just one season, like who knows what, like we didn't expect anything really come from it. And now we're in season 3.
Nice. And who are some of the guests you've had on that people can listen to?
Oh, we have been so blessed and so fortunate when it comes to guests. We have had so many people who are like amazing. I always use Shalina Kennedy was a guest on our podcast. She was one of our first interviews, and she's my idol. Like, I've looked up to her ever since I decided that like musical theater was the thing I'd like to do. She's a Canadian gal.
Yep.
She's a Canadian gal. And so we emailed her people during the pandemic, and we were like, hey, like we're doing an episode about Beautiful, the Carole King musical. We'd really like to interview Shalina about playing Carole King, because she is like, her in that role is like one of the best things I've ever seen in my entire life. And she said yes. So I came home from work one day on my lunch, and we sat down and we interviewed Shalina Kennedy. And I thought I was going to vomit. I was like, I'm not going to make it. I can't believe she's talking to me right now. So I kind of used that as an example. And like, because to me, that was like the holy crap, we're doing this moment. We've also been lucky. We've had members, we've had a lot of Bat Out of Hell cast members on, because we met from the show, and we love the show. So we've had people from like the original West End cast. We've had people from like the original Manchester cast. We did a series with the touring cast. Of those people, Simon Gordon has been a guest a couple of times. He's currently JD on the West End in Heathers. And he's such a supporter and so fabulous. We've had people like Christy Altamar has been joined us twice, and she is a literal fabulous ray of sunshine. She is the best. I could talk to her all day long.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think. It's so hard, but sometimes we even have things that just come out of the blue. We got a message from this new musical team, and we were already following them on Instagram actually, because Simon was doing this concept album with them, and they're called For Tonight. So we got an email saying, hey, like, could we maybe like do an episode or something? And we were like, okay, absolutely. This show sounds amazing. We were like, they know Simon, like, awesome, let's get on it. And to date, it's one of my favorite episodes we have ever done, with Spencer Williams and Chanel Salcido and Joseph Perdue. And we talked to them about their brand new musical. We talked to them about their concept cast recording, which they did all virtually during a pandemic. Anyway, it's one of my favorites. So if you're into new musicals, I would keep an eye on For Tonight, because that's going places.
Too late. I've interviewed them too, and I played their show. They played that show.
Good.
I've met Spencer a few times. Yeah.
So you know just how brilliant they are. And Spencer's so wonderful. Yeah. So wonderful.
I've met him virtually.
Yeah, virtually, yes.
So yeah, he's fantastic. It is a fun show. It is in our playlist on the radio station.
Yeah, I'm obsessed with it.
Well, hopefully now he has to tune in. Spencer, you have to listen to him. Now you have to say thank you to Jocelyn. How much, how much she's pushed it.
No, he knows. I feel like I'm always on their social media, like, oh, I love this song. Love this, love that.
Oh, that's too funny. That's awesome. Well, congratulations on everything you've done, from performing and
thank you.
And you're in a show right now. We'll just push that. I know depends on when you listen to this, that you might be not in that show because it might be a year from now. But what's the show you're in right now?
Yeah, so right now I am in The Last Resort at South Simcoe Theatre in Cookstown, Ontario. It is a wonderful musical comedy, whodunit, comedy of errors and mistaken identity sort of thing. It is by Norm Foster and Leslie Arden, who are two wonderful Canadian artists. And we are running from the 16th to the 26th, and we do Thursday through Sunday. So we open a week today, which is very exciting. And this is my first live show since the pandemic, which is so thrilling. We rehearsed the other night and we took our masks off, and I was like, oh, isn't it weird? Wow.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, yeah, congratulations. I'm going to try and come up to see that show.
Oh, that's awesome. I'd love to have you.
I'd love to, because I haven't been to Cookstown in forever. Last time I was there, I bought a dozen corn from my friend who has a farm there. Yeah. So that's the last time I was in Cookstown, a couple of years ago. Jocelyn, thank you for coming on and talking to me today about everything. How can people read the blog and hear the podcast?
Yeah, so you can always check me out. I'm at Miss Josbert on social media, and so everything is usually linked in my bio. But you can find the blog at Both Sides of the Curtain, and you can find the podcast at Breaking the Curtain, and we are wherever you like to listen to podcasts. Yeah.
Very nice. Now, before we go, I always ask 3 questions of my guests. There's no right or wrong answer, but listeners are judgy, so they might not agree, but I can't control those listeners.
I'll do my
best. So first one, it's nice and easy. The first one's nice and easy. All right. Question number 1, what creator or team within musical theater has had a great influence on you? Now, it could be a composer, lyricist, director, producer, actor, even stage manager. Could be somebody famous or not famous, maybe like a teacher or something like that. Is there anybody who's had a good influence on you?
Can I have 2?
You can.
So the first one has got to be my teachers, like my personal teachers, like Mr. Oates from high school, Jocelyn, Gabby, Zena, Loretta Bailey, so many wonderful people who just, not only are they so good at what they do, but they are so good at teaching and helping you be your best self, both on stage and off. They inspire me. And, every time I'm like, oh, I don't think I can do this, I'm like, they would think I could do this. So they're a good teacher is the best influence you can have in this business. The second actually is one, this is a composer who has always genuinely inspired me. But recently it's become something that's been a lot closer. So as we all know, Tick, Tick, Boom came out and everybody loves it. If you don't love Tick, Tick, Boom, I mean, we can't be friends. But we did a series on the podcast. It's a 3-episode series about Jonathan Larson himself and about the show. And the more I have learned about Jonathan Larson, instead of being just inspired by him in the sense like, oh, he wrote Rent and unfortunately, tragically passed away at a young age, to where I am now, in understanding his story after the hours of research that we've done. We spoke to his best friend, actually, Matt O'Grady. That's one of my other favorite podcast episodes. And the more I learn about Jonathan Larson, the more inspired I am by him, like every day. You know, he worked his butt off in an industry that didn't want what he was trying to give. It wasn't ready for him, but he pushed it, he pushed it, he pushed it. He finally broke down doors and walls and barriers. And we talk about him now. And the more I learn about him, the most important thing I've learned about Jonathan is that no matter what people said to him, no matter how tough it got, nothing ever really swayed his belief that he had something amazing to give the world of theater. He had something beautiful to give, and he was going to give it in whatever way he could. And he was going to work hard and get there. And honestly, like, what would Jonathan Larson do? He would work his butt off. He would do it. He would just do it. And yeah, he's become a much bigger inspiration to me personally than he already was.
All right.
Sorry, that was such a long answer, but no, he was just a wonderful, incredible artist and human. And yeah, definitely one of my top inspirations at this moment in my life.
1 point. Again, I can't control the judgy audience, but 1 point from me. All right. Question number 2. What is your favorite Canadian musical? Or a couple of them. What one do you love? There's some standard ones that everybody knows, but is there?
Can I?
Yes, you may have a couple.
I have 3.
Yes, that's fine.
Can I have a play be one of them? I love,
why not?
We learned this in school. We learned Saltwater Moon. It's this beautiful Canadian play.
French?
And
David French?
It's probably one of my favorite Canadian works ever. It's beautiful.
Who is it?
David French, yes.
David French. Okay, I had to read that one. Yep.
Yeah. It's the one kind of like the prequel to all of like the family stuff that and my other 2, I think my favorite Canadian musical, like tops, has got to be Anne and Gilbert. So it is the sequel to Anne of Green Gables, and it's when she's grown up and she's 18, and the way it combines those second 2 Anne books, Anne of Avonlea and Anne of the Island, it's brilliant. Dare I say, the listeners might get mad for this one if they're Canadian, but I'm okay with it. I would say it's the stronger Anne musical. Like Anne of Green Gables and Anne and Gilbert, I would say Anne and Gilbert is stronger.
They're different, and they're from different time periods, so it's hard.
Yeah, it's hard to compare.
Like 70 years apart, so it's hard.
But it's hard and it's risky to say.
Yeah.
But I think that show deserves way more recognition, because I think it's the stronger show.
It's running in Charlottetown right now. My friend's in it. So.
Yeah, I know. I auditioned for it.
Then maybe it was my friend that.
Maybe I don't know. I do also love Anne of Green Gables, but like after seeing Anne and Gilbert, I was like, yeah. And obviously, I love The Last Resort.
Leslie Arden and Norm Foster are Canadian theatrical royalty. Yes,
they are.
They might not be known outside of Canada, but they are so good.
It has been on my bucket list to do a Norm Foster show since drama school. So like the fact that it's Norm Foster and Leslie Arden, I'm like, great, nice, done.
Very nice. All correct answers, another point. And I don't care what the listeners think. They were all good answers. So
fair enough.
All right. 3rd question, and the one that they will judge you on, because they are judgy. Food in the theater or cell phones in the theater, which is worse?
Is the cell phone on silent?
It can be whatever you want.
Okay. Listen, I hate both, but if you're going to have your phone out in a show and I don't notice, go for it. But if I can hear you crunching, I can't do it. When I saw Les Mis, the lady like 2 seats down from me was chewing on popcorn all the way through I Dreamed a Dream, and I was like, there was so much rage from that moment. I think about it now and I'm like, anyway, no, I hate it. Have your food at intermission. Have your snack at intermission. Have it before the show. Like, and if you're going to eat during a show, for God's sake, don't let it be something like popcorn. That's like the loudest thing. And I was like, why would Mirvish sell popcorn? Why would you sell popcorn to eat during a musical? Especially one like Les Mis, where it's not like a rock musical where like you can't hear anything but the music. It's, I was like, this is not it. This is ruining the entire vibe for this song.
You were right the first time. Both are terrible. So
both are terrible, but like if you can be on your phone and I don't notice, you do your thing.
Like the only time I went, oh, they're eating popcorn, I saw SpongeBob, and it's a kids show. And there was, the people I felt terrible for were the ushers because there was popcorn everywhere on the floor. It was terrible. And it was only a matinee, so they had to clean it up and then do it again that night.
Oh, I hate that. Yeah, like clean, like even at a movie theater, I think it's gross. But like if you're gonna spend enough money to go to an actual theater, you're gonna spend the money, go to a theater and see a live performance. And also like people on stage can see you. They can. I once did a show, it was actually at South Simcoe, and somebody opened a bag of chips and just started eating. And now that is a 100-seat theater. It's very small. I could see her. She was in the back, but I could still see her. And I was watching her eat the entire performance. And I was like, you know, I can see you, right? Like this room is very small. Like, you know, like I can see you.
I know.
So, you know, just if you're going to pay the money, just be good. Follow the rules. It's 2 hours. I think you'll be okay without popcorn for 2 hours.
Exactly. 3 correct answers, 3 points. Congratulations. Woo! No prizes, but you can brag now to your co-host for the podcast. You can be like, I got it all right. And then
I won.
She'll be like, what are you talking about? But that's okay. Jocelyn, again, thank you so much for coming on and introducing, you know, myself and the world to your blog and your podcast, and the best of luck with the show and everything.
Thank you. Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun. I won't lie. I think we were talking a little earlier about how, you know, I find it stressful when people are asking me the questions, but this was so lovely and just wonderful. So thank you for having me.
My pleasure. All right. So we were just speaking with Jocelyn Bertram, the creator of the Both Sides of the Curtain blog and Breaking the Curtain co-host podcast. Tune in next week as we'll be speaking with another guest or guests about their life, love, and passion that is musical theater. I am your host, as always, Jean-Paul Jovanoff. And until next time, I'll see you when I see you.